Hello, everybody. If you haven't noticed from the last couple of words that came out of my mouth, I am not a Hugo girl. I am a Hugo bro, and I am Stephen Sally. I am Amy's brother, and we get to host this episode. It's going to be great.
I'm Kevin. Probably know who I am.
And my name is Eric Aker. Amy's a friend of mine, and I have a podcast called Picture Me Coding that she appeared on. And so I'm happy to be here today and hope I don't mess it up too badly.
Yeah, that's my one goal. I don't want to mess this up too badly, and I still want to have a sister that loves me at the end.
So the girls were a little bit busy with Worldcon, and so I think Steven suggested, how hard can it be? We can do it. So we're going to see if we can do it.
Yeah, how hard could it be, right?
Yeah, so as far as we'll try to do the normal segments. As far as acknowledging followers, comments, etc., I don't have access to the comments and what have you, so I don't, I'm sure we'll do that later. But as far as acknowledging some of our listeners, we had a table talk at Worldcon and got to meet some new listeners, not new as in newly listening, but new as in we hadn't met them before, and that was great. It was a fun time meeting everyone.
How was the Worldcon experience overall? Like, what was it like?
Oh, it was a lot of fun, yeah. I think we'll have a full wrap-up episode coming up, but yeah, basically we did some panels. Lori and I did some panels, and yeah, got to meet some listeners, got to meet a lot of co-finalists, some of which we already knew, some of which were new. Yeah, it's always just a great time to...
Amy sent me a text, and she was very, very excited that she got recognized. So that elevated her celebrity status. So I can say that I am related to somebody who got recognized for being on a podcast.
I saw a photo she shared, and it looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And as far as upcoming things, Amy, Lori, and I will be at Armadillo Con in Austin, Texas from September 12th to 14th. We should be doing a live podcast recording. There will be some other panels and game show fun type things. We're not really allowed to disclose the schedule yet, but it'll be pretty cool. It looks like a great set of programming. That'll be a lot of fun, so we're excited for that.
Well, awesome. Well, I guess too, since we don't have access to any corrections that need to be made, I guess we can't make corrections, can we?
Nope.
All right.
We can just assume everything was perfect in
everything was
history.
Right.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
They always get it. They always get it right.
Well, I guess I'll jump right into this. I'm the lucky fella that gets to be the DM for this episode. So anything I mess up, tell Amy, and she'll tell me. It'll be great. So just a quick plot summary of what's going on today. We're going to be discussing Redshirts, which was written by John Scalzi, whatever those pronunciations they tried last time, but it's Scalzi. It was published in 2012, and it received both the Hugo and Locus Awards in 2013. Among its dedications is one addressed to Will Wheaton, and I quote, "Whom I heart with all of the hearty heartness a heart can heart." And I will admit this, I was kind of time crunched, so I listened to the Will Wheaton audio version of this. So I feel like I have a little connection to Will myself after all that. So the narrative follows Ensign Andrew Dahl, newly assigned to the Universal Union's flagship, the Intrepid. The ship is celebrated for its daring explorations and dramatic missions, and to a young officer, it represents the pinnacle of achievement. Yet from the outset, Dahl notices something deeply wrong. Veteran crew members behave oddly. They avoid certain senior officers, approach away missions with palpable dread, and treat parts of the ship with quiet superstition. Unspoken rules govern the ship, understood by all but articulated by none. Junior officers die with alarming regularity, often in inexplicable ways, while senior officers survive regardless of recklessness. Dahl soon allies with other ensigns, and together they discern a pattern that defies probability. Danger repeats itself, coincidences accumulate, and even seem to follow a structure that bends reality itself. Their investigation gradually reveals the scale of the forces shaping their lives, forcing them to confront questions of autonomy, survival, and the nature of the universe they inhabit. As the story progresses, the crew's struggle becomes increasingly urgent. Dahl and his companions are driven not only by fear, but by determination to reclaim control over their own destinies. The novel moves toward a resolution in which the characters' choices, courage, and ingenuity take on profound significance, even as the absurdity and danger around them continue to challenge their understanding of reality. So that's it in a nutshell.
A lot of realities merging and overlapping in there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we'll have to try to get into that in general discussion.
Yeah. I will go ahead and preface this. I got confused a couple of times, but I think I managed.
Confused by the characters? That's one thing for me. I was like, who's this again? I had to kind of read sections.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing. And with Will Wheaton's voicing all of them, they all sounded about the same, to be honest.
I think the only thing I'd add, as far as the award year, normally we just mention it if the category itself is interesting, but I looked at the short story category, and there are only 3 nominees or 3 finalists. Normally there are 6, and it said there are only 3 due to the 5% requirement section of 3.8.5 of the WSFS Constitution, which is no longer in effect, but I looked it up. And in 2013, it said no nominee shall appear on the final award ballot if it received fewer nominations than 5% of the number of ballots listing 1 or more nominations in that category, except that the first 3 eligible nominees shall always be listed. So it seemed like that was a very low participation year for short story. And if anyone knows the story behind that, I'm just curious. So write in and let us know.
I also, that's the year of publication, 2012, was the year that Star Wars was inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. So we have a little conflicting sci-fi there. So if we don't have anything else to add, y'all got anything good from Goodreads, Amazon, funny stuff?
I found a couple that I thought were kind of funny.
Good, because I had a hard time.
The first one that I liked was actually a 4-star Goodreads review, and it goes like this: Redshirts, a novel with 3 codas by John I'm not Gene Roddenberry, but I dressed up like him once for Halloween Scalzi, could also have been Redshirts' existential musings in the internet age by a satire-minded child of the 80s. That's someone who liked the book.
And I will say the ones that did not like the book did not like the book.
Yeah, I saw that too. This alternate title this person wrote, Existential Musings in the Internet Age by a satire-minded child. I kept looking at it like, are they trying to make some kind of acronym? I looked at it for a little too long.
So the other side of this was Davis from Amazon says, it definitely wasn't funny enough. In fact, I don't think it could possibly have been funny enough to offset the constant cursing and filthy talk.
Oh, filthy talk. There were 2 others I saw that that kind of stood out to me. One of them was 2-star review, and the reviewer writes, if this was a 1-word review, the 1 word would be, quote, overrated. The story is basically a written version of Friday night conversations in nerd basements all over the world when under the influence of cola and Fritos. Trekkies start the well-worn discussion about how the guys in the red shirts always die in Star Trek away missions. Scalzi takes it a meta step further, allowing the, quote, red shirts to become aware of their own peril. It's a 50-page idea fluffed into a 200-page story with 3 unnecessary, quote, codas tacked on to get the page count up to 300 plus. And yes, class, you can use double spacing.
Yeah, I saw that one. Normally with Goodreads, the 2-star reviews are where it's at because it's people who, a lot of times the 1 stars are just like, this book sucks. And then the 2 stars are more, here's why. But yeah, I mostly agreed with the 2-star reviews, even though I'd probably rate it a little higher personally. It's one of those, I see all the faults, but I still didn't dislike it that much. So I couldn't really use the 2 stars. So I found a couple of 1 stars. One was Goodreads from Josh Graves. It says, this book has stopped me from my goal of reading all the Hugos. If this is
I saw that one too.
Yeah.
I saw that one.
If this is what can win, then the entire award must be a joke. Please never read this book. It's so terribly written and the plot is just awful. Such a good idea. why do all the characters sound the same? Which is something a lot of the even more positive reviews noted. The book screams that it was written by someone who thinks they're very cool.
That showed up in the 2-star reviews too. Like, wow, this guy thinks he's so funny. He's not that funny. I kept reading that over and over again.
I don't know. I didn't feel that way about it. I thought I felt like it was, hey, I'm writing this to be silly and absurd, and here it is. It's silly and absurd. Like, I didn't read into it that he was like, hey, watch how smart I am.
And then I found another. This one might be good for Steven since he listened to the audiobook. It was a 1-star Goodreads review from Gavin. And this is just an excerpt from a much longer review. It says, as for the audiobook, Will Wheaton is a terrible voice actor because he doesn't do any acting. He uses the same voice for every character. Male, female, Russian, alien. Doesn't matter. They all sound the same. At least he has some occasional inflection. The only way it could be worse is if he was monotone. After hearing some of his other audiobooks, it appears he just can't voice act to save his life. And listening to him barrel through all the Dahl said, Duvall said, Dahl said, Duvall said crap is an incredible chore that highlights how terribly this book was edited. And that's in the opening minutes of chapter 1.
I read a review that talked about people reading the print book, commenting on the he said. But to hear Will Wheaton repeatedly say, something, Dahl said, something, Duvall said, like, it's a bit grating, I will say.
Yeah, and I guess, we can just jump right into kind of the general discussion, because on that point, I don't think I really noticed that as much reading it, but that was because I feel like I needed it, which goes back to the point about the characters being very similarly written. If it didn't say Dahl said, Duvall said, Dahl said, I would have no idea who was saying what. And even with the character names, like you mentioned, Eric, I had to go back sometimes and be like, wait, is that his rich friend, or is that the guy who just shows up and no one really knows? Like, even just aside from those like little 1-sentence descriptions you get when everyone's introduced, I felt like there's very little to separate the characters aside from these, I forget what you call them, but the, Dahl said, Duvall said, etc.
Oh, so based on that, so if there weren't the Duvall saids and all the saids, would they have needed a better voice actor? I'm not commenting on Will Wheaton's voice acting chops, but they would have needed more voices and more inflections if they didn't have the Duvall saids all the time.
I had this moment I was a little embarrassed about, maybe 50, 60 pages in, where there's one woman among the friends. The character's name is Maya Duvall, and I didn't remember the first name. And they used the last names to refer to all the characters. And I had this moment of surprise, like, oh, wait, I think this character's a woman. I kind of forgot or something.
I had to put a reminder in my head that Dahl was male because Roald Dahl wrote James and the Giant Peach, and he was a male. So that's how I remembered who was male and who was female between Duvall and Dahl. Really roundabout way to remember gender.
Some of the reviews were really harsh about the humor in it. I found it funny and entertaining to read. There was like one of my favorite moments early on when the Dahl character gets given this task to find this, quote, counterbacterial. And there's always this meta, like, making fun of the plot while the plot's happening in the book. And he goes, I don't know how to solve this. And his lab mates say, time to break out the box. I
love the box.
I love the box. And then later on, he's like, well, can we put all of our problems in the box? And the lab people are like, no, it only works for things that are extraordinarily difficult. And it's like, just like what we do at my job in software, it's like, hey, we got this cool thing. It solves a problem. Can we solve all problems with it? And sadly, it just doesn't work that way.
So the other funny side of that I really enjoyed was when they went and talked to the name escaped me, the Admiral. And they're like, just say this to him. And then he's going to say something really, really confusing back to you. And you say you're going to take it back and look at it again. I just found that whole exchange funny. I liked it.
Yeah. And I'm also going to be saying the Admiral, whatever his name is, etc., because I thought maybe I should go back and study the names and know who everyone was. But I think it's funnier and makes the point more that I have no idea.
That was the science officer.
We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
He's ostensibly assigned to the science officer's lab queeing, and he's supposed to go back to that science officer and report his counterbacterial finding results.
Yeah. So as far as the humor, I made a note of that too, because my edition has an introduction by Mary Robinette Kowal, who is a lovely person and a great writer. And I'm not trying to say anything about her, but her introduction highlighted the humor of the book. And so I was prepared for it to be very funny. And then I read that Will Wheaton introduction, that or dedication that Stephen noted. And that kind of set my expectations a little lower. And Lori had read Kaiju Preservation Society last year when it was a finalist, and would shout out some of the humor in it to me, like literally, like was sitting there reading it and be like, listen to this. And it was very, kind of like Reddit, Tumblr, internet humor, kind of cringy. And so that's what I was expecting. And so on one hand, I was pleasantly surprised that a lot of the humor in Redshirts was not like that, but it also never struck me as particularly laugh out loud funny. I think I chuckled twice, and the rest was kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of clever.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way. And I think I'm glad I went into it with no expectation. So when those little humorous moments popped up, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So it was funny to me. And I mean, it wasn't like laugh out loud funny, but it was enough to make me chuckle and be like, that's pretty, it's kind of clever, it's funny stuff.
Yeah.
One of the jokes I liked is when they're on this, I think it's a space station, and they're running from these killer robots, and they try to push this big button to get the door to close. And then the main character is like, I got an idea. You should shoot the door panel. And then afterwards, the guy's like, shooting the panel's your big idea. And he says, I had a hunch it would work. And then the guy responds that the space station was wired haphazardly, that the whole place is one big fucking code violation. I thought that was pretty funny because it's like straight out of Star Wars. I mean, how many times in Star Wars did they just go, let me just shoot the panel?
Yeah, just shoot the panel. Well, you also hit on something else, the aliens that are involved in this story, the ridiculous aliens. And I particularly like the ice sharks. And their conversation about like, well, did the ice sharks, are they made of ice? Did they live in the ice? Like, what's going on? And nobody could understand or explain like how one dies by ice shark, which I thought was just,
how did the sharks swim through the ice?
Yeah, how do they swim through the ice? But it was the ridiculousness of it all that's just like, yeah, it's funny. I get it.
Yeah, I did like the aspects highlighting a lot of the sci-fi tropes, and not just highlighting them, but having the characters react to them like you would if that happened in the real world, and being like, why did that work?
Can I ask you guys a question, though? So when I was reading this, the first third of it, I had this question in my mind of, is this better or worse if you're a serious Star Trek fan or a casual Star Trek fan, or you've pretty much never watched Star Trek? I'm probably in that spectrum on the pretty extremely super casual Star Trek fan.
Yeah, same here.
And I kept thinking maybe there are references in here that I'm missing, like the Yeti guy Jenkins. I was like, isn't Jenkins a reference to something, or is that just a weird internet thing? I kept thinking, I was like, stuff was going over my head.
Yeah, same thing. I wasn't sure. I mean, I appreciate that it is written in a way that a casual Star Trek and apparently these are things that pop up in other sci-fi series of around the same time, and I appreciate it's written in a way that we can get those. And I was hoping one of you two was a big Star Trek fan, so we could figure that out.
Amy's I would say our dad was the Trekkie of the family, but Amy may be more Trekkie than I am.
Maybe we can do an addendum.
In my head, I just totally threw you under the Star Trek fan bus, Kevin. Just completely assumed you were in there.
No, I mean, back in the day when we had a TV antenna and that was it, I watched a lot of original series because it was on.
It was on, yeah.
Same thing, watched a lot of Next Generation because it was on, but I was never a fan. And when you watch it that way, it's like you're watching half of every third episode, so you don't get the through line. So, I enjoyed what I saw, but I was never a fan because I never got like the whole story.
I think I'm exactly the same as that. Like, we didn't have cable growing up, so it was like whatever was on, the network television, and I would catch an episode here or there. And I saw enough to understand like some of the through line stories, and I saw all the movies and all that, and they were fun. But yeah, I think I appreciated this because of my limited knowledge, but enough knowledge to get stuff. I wonder if maybe we should have gotten a Trekkie on here. Like, I want to know. Like, maybe somebody can write into the show or however y'all handle those things, because I don't know. Like, I wonder. I would love to know what a true Trekkie feels about it. How they took it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to know that too.
Yeah. Oh, and I will say, I meant to mention this at the beginning of general discussion with those reviews that say, "Oh, this is written by someone who thinks he's so cool," and etc. So John Scalzi does a dance party at Worldcon. I don't know about every year, but every year we've gone in person. He's done a dance party, and we have never gone until this year. And he's got his laptop up there, and he's not just hitting play. He's mixing. He's up there. He's like doing the DJ thing. He's dancing along. He's singing along. He goes into the crowd and dances.
So it sounds like he's not taking himself very seriously.
No, he was wearing a shirt that said Alpha Male, but it was pink with a big rainbow unicorn on it. And just the look on his face when he was doing this, he was the happiest guy in the world playing this music for people. It was, I don't want to say adorable, but it kind of was. He was like, it's like, oh, look at him. He's having so a great time. I love this. So yeah, he definitely doesn't. I absolutely do not think he's too cool. He seems like a fun guy. Everything I've heard, he's a nice guy. So,
I mean, I was honestly a little surprised reading the reviews that people were that almost like they took offense to this kind of meta aspect that they claimed was in. I mean, it is there, but they were like offended that it was this sort of self-referencing joke. And I think if you approach it and like, this is just a good time, whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that sense from it that he was trying to come off as sort of a winking, ironic, annoying person.
No, I thought it was like a genuine attempt at like, what are these characters going through? Like, what if we told this story from a real side of their lives? And I enjoyed it for that. Like, I liked the meta. In fact, the codas at the end, I think, made the story for me, because they like really made it human, which I just think made it more interesting to me.
Well, I think that's where you're wrong.
We will respectfully disagree.
One thing I really liked that I was surprised by is I thought it was really clever how they figured out that they figure out gradually that they're in a show, or someone tells them. This guy Jenkins tells them. And it's really funny how he tells them. He has like a PowerPoint presentation with like slides and graphs. And he's like, well, you're in a show.
Which is hilarious in itself, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. Oh, and they even have like the typical AV problems at the beginning where he's like banging on his projector. It's just like when you join a virtual meeting, and it's like, can you hear me? Am I sharing my screen? It was like, that stuff never goes away. So he's telling them that they're part of a show, and they're trying to figure out, they come up with this like crazy plan to go back in time, but they need to figure out when to go back in time too. And the way they figure it out is they pretty much look for like the moments in the narrative where the ship has gone back in time, where they're like meaningless moments in history. Because like, why would you go back in time to this point at the end of all the periods of time you've gone back in time to, if it's totally meaningless? Every other moment you've gone back to has a point. That's pretty clever, actually. I like that.
I like it.
Yeah. So I definitely have feelings and want to know your reactions to kind of the two big meta moments. The first is that they gradually find out that they're on a show, or that they're the characters that are written on a show. And then there's the second reveal where Duval, the main character of the book, finds out he's the main character of the book, and that's why he doesn't die, much like the main characters of the show cannot die. So my first thing was I was interested to see where it went, because it seemed like it was developing as though just kind of amorphous sci-fi cliche, like this is a real universe, but somehow these sci-fi cliches were bleeding in and were affecting their universe. And I thought that was really interesting, and really wanted to explore that. And especially since they kept talking about, like, at some point Star Trek came into it, and it seemed like maybe, so they're like, oh, if this is a show, this is a poorly written show. And then Star Trek came into it, and it kind of seemed like he didn't want to criticize Star Trek or call it poorly written. So instead of that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it's this. You're actually characters in this show that is a bad Star Trek ripoff. And to me, that felt like a bit of a letdown.
Because you want him to be taking the piss out of Star Trek? You want him to be savage for Star
just
Trek?
We'll show them.
No, just because like I thought the idea that like all of these, I mean, I don't even know how it would work, but to me, what I was building up in my head of every sci-fi franchise is somehow infecting this future was more interesting to me than writing this show creates an alternate universe, because then that just creates a whole lot of plot holes that echo throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah, there's a lot of places you could kind of spiral out thinking about how the ramifications of this. At the beginning, when Jenkins tells him, Jenkins is the guy who like figures out what's going on and tracks all the command officers so that people can hide from them. He says this phrase that I really, really liked. He says, "Avoid the narrative." And I really like the idea of characters in a story trying to avoid the narrative of the story. And then there's always weird discussions about, can you have free will as a character in a story? It seems like the answer to that's trivially obvious. It's like, no, there's no free will. You can't have free will. But then Dahl talks to the actor who plays him, and that actor is like, doesn't this mess with your head? And he's like, no, I don't want to think about it. I just want to focus on deciding my fate. And it's like, what? How is that possible? And then Kevin, what you're talking about at the end, he's like, I figured out I'm probably a character in another story. And like that kind of move, I was like, all right, okay. But by that point, I was a little less sold, kind of.
Yeah, and my issue was then nothing was done with it. Like the book just ended. I mean, there are the codas, but the main story, just that was it.
You were hitting on something before, Eric, where you're talking about how how life is inconsequential, and I think that's he never came out and said it. I mean, the codas illustrated it, but I think that's the big deal of the story. It's like it's the life is meaningful. Do with it what you can. Make it the most. And I think it's even interesting when they're on the Intrepid, and there are those moments where what's going on is plot driven, script driven. But then there's moments like even the officers, like they talk different, they act different, and so it's like I think they do have free will in a way, because it's not always reliant on the script of the story. Like they're making choices for themselves and doing things, but then all of a sudden, as soon as the script comes up, then it's like, oh, I can't be this, I can't do this because somebody else is telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the parts where like they know that King, the science officer, is coming, so they all take stock of the stock room or go get coffee or whatever. Like, yeah, that's a good, good part. But yeah, I mean, I think the overall theme is good. Kind of, even though your life is not being written by someone else, a lot of things that happen to you are out of control, and what you do with that and how you live your life is still up to you, and how you take the things that you can't otherwise control.
I want to know y'all's thoughts on this question. So in real life, Weinstein is the author or the writer for the show. And my question to you guys is, should Weinstein be locked up for murder? I mean, there's lots of murder. And apparently they're real people because they can travel in time to our reality.
Maybe involuntary manslaughter, because there's no mens rea in
Okay.
He's sort of like surprised to discover the ramifications of his bad TV show writing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I did a little data dive. Speaking of death, I did a little data dive into Star Trek and Redshirts comparisons. I just want to get y'all's reaction to it. So, episodes wise, there was 79 episodes of Star Trek. And in the book, they say there was 128 episodes of Redshirts. Star Trek ran for 3 seasons, which I didn't realize it was so short. Like me and my limited, the original Star Trek was only 3 seasons long.
Wow.
Redshirts was 6. All right, so now here it is. Star Trek episodes with a death. There were 55 episodes with a death. Redshirts had 96 episodes with a death, and they both work out to be about 75% of the episodes had a death. And whether that's intentional or not, I don't know.
Huh.
In Redshirts, they mentioned that the number of murders was, quote, into the millions. And then Star Trek actual total deaths was 104,557,184,145 deaths.
Wow.
And that's from
Wow.
the list of deaths wiki.
I didn't know that existed.
I didn't either. But I found it interesting that they both had the same percentage of deaths, which, whether it's purposeful or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
So here's another little bit of data. I want y'all to take a prediction here. So in Star Trek, you had blue shirts, gold shirts, red shirts were the prevalent colors. Which one do you think had the highest percentage of population lost on the Enterprise? Take a guess.
I'm guessing red. Easy guess.
I don't know which is which, so I feel like that would inform my decision. Maybe whichever one is engineering.
Yeah, I think engineering gold, but then Kirk also wore gold too. I think the engineering, they lost the most number of people.
Engineering and security were red.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought it's like stuff's always blowing up in engineering. We need to
Yeah.
go faster. We got shot. Everything explodes. Fix it.
Deck 6. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody go to Deck 6.
Yeah.
All right, so here are the numbers. So on Star Trek, there were 7 blue shirt casualties, 9 gold shirt casualties, 15 unknown casualties, which I don't know what that means exactly, but it's a stat, and then 24 red shirt casualties.
Oh, okay.
So they had
it is
the highest
honest.
number.
Huh.
Yeah.
So then total population, blue had 136, gold was only 55, and red was 239. So now when you get to percent of the population lost, 5% of the deaths on the Star Trek were blue shirts. 10% of the population was red shirts. Gold shirts was 13.4%.
Wow, so red shirts are doing all right. Yeah.
They were doing all right. It was actually statistically worse to be a gold shirt.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
Which I found. So I mean, the trope is there because they had the most. But I wouldn't want to be on an away mission wearing a gold shirt.
No. Well, it's good to know that the numerically the red shirts are the highest, because I'd always kind of wondered if that was an accurate trope or kind of a urban legend kind of thing.
But now I get to do this really fun, annoying thing with my kid every time Star Trek's on, be like, by percentages, the red shirts are actually doing all right in terms of population loss.
And all that data comes from Matthew Barcelo. He has a website that has all that data on it. But one more thing I'll throw out there. There is hope. Amy put me onto tvtropes.com, and I'll just read this about red shirts. Lieutenants Leslie and Kyle. They were the 2 most prominent red shirt characters. Lieutenant Leslie appeared in the background of most episodes and even managed to come back from the dead, and is also known as King of the Red Shirts. Lieutenant Kyle was the only red shirt to have a steady job. He was a transporter chief, and he also had frequent dialogue, making him the closest thing the series had to a mauve shirt. He even appeared in one movie and in the animated series. So there are 2 red shirts out there that are holding it down for the rest of them.
Red Shirts Hall of Fame, those 2.
Yeah. Maybe we should make one. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I was going to mention back to something you said, Kevin, is they're talking about, and I think, Stephen, you comment on this too, but there's a comment in there about how every battle is designed for maximum drama, and that's because the narrative takes over. So the narrative, which they're trying to avoid, has it's like this sort of supernatural force to them. It's the narrative takes over and things quit making sense. And I really like that. But then thinking about this as a commentary on sci-fi that I've loved in general, I kind of was like, well, wait a minute. Is that always true? The narrative takes over and things stop making sense. This is only the show they're on, right? Because it's bad. My favorite stuff doesn't do this, does it?
I don't know. Does it?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Well, I mean, you have to, to suspend belief or whatever it is. Like when any sci-fi thing is coming on, lightsabers can't really be real, can they? And, there's just stuff you have to just just take it, Who cares? It's sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did like the parts where the narrative takes over and they can tell just by how people are acting, and it switches back and forth. So as far as suspension of disbelief and some things I referred to as plot holes before, I kind of want to, maybe this is just something I didn't understand, but I want to get your take on this. I'm willing to suspend disbelief like things aren't like they are in our world, but if you set out some rules in your universe, I want you to follow those rules. And that's where I have problems suspending disbeliefs is if the internal logic is not followed. So when Jenkins tells them that they're on a show and he lays out this whole PowerPoint, I don't know if it's during that point or not, but I highlighted the quote where he said, when you create a science fiction show, you create a new fictional timeline which starts just before the production date of that television show. That show's past doesn't include the television show itself. So then, how did they know they were on that television show? And how did they know about Star Trek, which, I mean, obviously it exists in the current timeline as just like a cultural thing, but it was not a current, it was not currently happening then. So how did they
Did they find out about Star Trek when they went back in the past? Is that when they found out about it?
No, they had done some research, and I think to Kevin's point, it was like, well, how can you do research about TV programs if that's not part of the past of the universe you're in? I think I had the same confusion.
Yeah, so again, to maybe how I think this could have been better, which I hate to do, like, maybe if there was some transmit, like, they time traveled through the black hole that was done in an episode that somehow they found out about. So maybe if they had like intercepted transmissions that were coming through that black hole because the narrative had made that connection between the two worlds, that would have made a little more sense to me.
I think suspension of disbelief is a key thing for me when I think about how I reacted to the book. I liked the book, and maybe we're supposed to keep that. I'm not supposed to share that yet. I don't know. But I didn't like the ending.
Show's ruined now.
Great.
Well, it's like, he says, I'm a main character somewhere else. That didn't really work for me. It's like this book, it took a significantly more suspension of disbelief from me than typical for any story. I had to work really hard to suspend a lot of disbelief as I was reading it. It took a lot of effort. And I did that because I was having fun, and there's some funny moments, and we're all having a good time here. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously. There's also some kind of cool philosophical discussion about, can these characters have free will? And that's like weird layering on top of that in the narrative. But then the ending is just this like super rush truncated thing. And it just sort of like, okay, suddenly we figured out how to solve it, and it's solved and it's over. Bye-bye. Yeah. And then there's these codas. Yeah. And that ending felt so rushed and truncated that it felt like it didn't really reward all this extra effort I put in along the way to suspend all that disbelief. I did all this work, and it's like all I got was this stupid t-shirt.
Yeah. Like the same argument against Game of Thrones. They do all that hard work, and then at the end, it's like, what the hell just happened?
This conversation always reminds me of Stand By Me, actually. Also, Will Wheaton is in Stand By Me, where they're walking on the train tracks, and there's a character named Vern, one of the kids, and he says to the other character, Teddy, do you think Mighty Mouse could beat up Superman? And Teddy's like, are you out of your mind? Mighty Mouse is a cartoon, but Superman's a real guy. A cartoon can't beat up a real guy. And it's like, it's funny and it's ironic because he's a fan, but it's like sometimes being a fan is like also like being a sucker, right? Like you're willing to play along and believe in the reality of the thing. It's like we play these kind of weird games with suspension of disbelief where we try to figure out if it goes too far. Like, I'm okay with time travel, but then they swapped the bodies and magically healed someone via the narrative, so they lost me.
Who would win in a fight, Dahl or Luke Skywalker?
Well, they're both main characters, so
that's right.
What happens when narratives collide?
I think it's like it takes a lot of work to perform the suspension of disbelief required by this book. And when I read the reviews that were mad about it, I felt like that's what they were mad about. I did all this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that happened to me just because I was just reading it for pure entertainment. Like I wasn't, and you're right, I did have to put in work in the middle because you get kind of caught in the weeds of who's who and where are they and what's going on. And then I think when they came back to their time and they showed up and there was this huge battle going on that they couldn't explain and all that, like, I agree with you, but at the same time, like, I'm willing to overlook it just because it was an entertaining story. So I'm willing to take it.
Yeah. And I'm fine with narratives not necessarily wrapping up or maybe not necessarily being an overarching narrative, or like, I'm a big Cormac McCarthy fan, and if you're familiar with the ends of like Blood Meridian or No Country for Old Men, I don't want to spoil them for anyone who hasn't read them, but
They have happy endings, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, very, very. But they kind of just end. But the way it's done works very well. I think with this one, it's not so much that it just ends, it's that he added this extra layer that could have been really interesting at the very end and then just dropped it.
And Eric, I think you hit on it before too, when they all run into their actor selves. Like, I liked those interactions, especially when they didn't know who each other were, and they're like, "Hey, I know you from somewhere. You look familiar. I was your husband on the show." I mean, it's an interesting. It's almost like if Marty McFly had met himself, but my mind kind of went back to Back to the Future with all that stuff about space-time continuum, and if you meet somebody and you do something in the past that messes up things down the road, they didn't seem really care about that. They were more cared about their atoms going away after 3 days or something.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I did think that was funny when they kept haranguing the scriptwriter about, why did you write that the atoms swap after 6 days? It's like, I didn't know this was going to be a real thing. That was pretty funny. And that's one other thing I wanted to get your take on is he writes this episode that saves the day, allows the comatose son and the other crewman to swap bodies. Which I don't know, I thought was cool because it embraced this is exactly the kind of ridiculous thing that would happen on this type of show. So I thought that was a fun idea. But then
I was okay with that too.
but wait, there's more. But
then it turns out that they wrote it and filmed it, but it never aired. So if it's not out there in the world, is it really part of the narrative that would affect the fictional universe?
That was a similar question I had. Like, when do these deaths happen? Do they happen when they're written, or do they happen when it airs? And I think you just answered the question, but did you? Because that stuff still happens. So
And what if you got completely different? What if you got completely different writers contributing? What if, does fan fiction count? Can I write fan fiction and completely mess up their universe?
And
is it in the canon? But see, that's the thing. Is it in the canon of the show?
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. If it didn't air, it is not. So how is that part of the narrative? And that's another thing I think could have had some fun things done with it. If that's the take you want, that it doesn't have to air. You could be like, oh, we started filming this episode and then the actor was fired, and then the characters are like, oh, that's why this started happening, and then just suddenly stopped for no reason. Like something like that could have addressed it.
So if you wrote it and it didn't air, and then let's say what he wrote it down on gets burned or flooded or ruined, then does it all go away?
I have an analogous question for you, which is a completely different sci-fi universe. Have you guys been watching the Alien Earth show at all?
Not yet.
I haven't seen it yet.
I really want to, but we've been traveling so much, haven't had the chance.
But you've seen the original Alien probably, right? Kevin, I know you have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know, you may know this, there's this deleted scene from the original Alien where the original captain of the ship, Dallas, is shown as like, I only found about this because people who I know who are fans of the Alien franchise were watching the show and talking about the show. There's a deleted scene where Dallas is cocooned, like the bodies in the second. Kevin, do you know what I'm talking about? Because I'm trying to describe it. I don't actually know about so tell me about can you describe better than I can? I just had it described to me.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's the same thing as you see in Aliens, where when the people are captured and they're like I said, cocooned up on the wall, but with their faces exposed so that the eggs can be planted in front of them and they can get face huggers. Like that was introduced in the first movie. They just cut it out.
But what I had heard was that the people who are cocooned get turned into the eggs, and that this would have been the canon if it would have been included in the film. And so I have this conflict. Yeah, but I have this conflict in my brain, and I have this very, very dumb question, and I want to ask it, and I just can't get away from asking this super dumb question, which is that how it really works in that alien universe? I can't stop asking that dumb question.
I guess maybe in the first one. I mean, I feel like maybe that is why the alien queen was invented, to answer the question of where did all these eggs come from.
You tell me that's not how it works. Just follow this later, maybe.
That's not how it works.
So the canon there. Okay, all right. I'm accepting that. Thank you for solving that one for me.
Yeah, no, I'd forgotten about that, because there is actually a deleted scene that was filmed that shows them just up on the walls, but not what happens after. And yeah, I had forgotten that there was this idea that they then turn into eggs.
Well, this is all new to me, and I'm glad I now get to think about this all the time. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a paradox for me in that universe, but probably not distracting from what we're supposed to be doing here today.
Well, no, maybe this has created an alternate alien universe, and now there are two. There's the one where the queen lays the eggs, and there's one where people turn into eggs.
Oh, you're saying that when I watch this stuff, I got to think about two universes the whole time where the rules are different?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, then you got to think about the Predator universe, too, because aliens and Predator, they fight each other, right?
This is like a whole Marvel Comics thing. It's just there's too many layers. I can't do it.
Well, it was originally a Dark Horse comic, so...
Great.
I didn't know that.
Just when we had it understood.
No, yeah. Before I was super excited for the Alien versus Predator movies, because when I was younger, I read all of the Dark Horse Alien and Predator and Alien versus Predator comics. So I was like, this is going to be great, and then it wasn't so much.
Well, how do y'all feel about moving into what I think will be an awkward segment, feminist phase? Well, it won't be awkward. Feminist phase. Did y'all see any feminist fave moments?
This was hard for me as a school assignment. I was like, well, maybe this Maya Duvall character, who I only just discovered, 50 pages after her introduction, is actually a woman. She's pretty sex positive. Maybe that counts, right? Sort of a second wave feminism thing. I was kind of confused in my feminist stance on this. This is the only woman among the group of friends and characters. Usually I need Amy's help for this stuff. Can we phone a friend?
It's our show. We make the rules.
Yeah, I didn't find anything, just because, like, as we talked about earlier, they're basically all the same character with different names. So even if it is a woman character, is there anything inherently... I mean, I guess the most feminist it is just having a woman character at all.
Yeah.
Having a token woman in there is feminist,
he
according to Kevin.
All men, but he didn't, so...
Which takes us into our misogynist moment.
Yeah. So I mean, once I realized Maya Duvall, the character, is a woman, it's like there's a lot of flirtation usually in the scenes that she's in. As soon as she enters the book, she's like flirting with the main character. She says, "I own you. I bought you a drink." And then they go on shore leave, and she's complaining about this guy Kerensky, and he's like totally incompetent. He's the guy who gets injured all the time.
But she's sleeping with him.
Yeah, and then it's like he becomes her boyfriend. Yeah. And she's like perfectly happy to start sleeping with this guy. He had 3 STDs, and they're giving her a hard time. And she's like, well, I don't blame me for scratching an itch. None of you are stepping up. And it's like she exists to be dating this character because it's useful for the plot later on. I was a little uncomfortable with that.
I was too.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, and the other one, which I did not come up with, I saw somewhere else, was the fridged wife trope with was it Jenkins, the Yeti guy, that his wife died, and that was the impetus for him figuring all this out. So it's like there are 2 basically named female characters, and one of them just died to advance the narrative. Yeah, one of them died to advance the narrative, and the other is just dating Kerensky to advance the narrative.
The one who died is like a muse for the genius loner guy.
When I was making notes for this, I kept thinking, like, I wanted to find something that Duvall, like, she was like the person that did this. Like, it was, I mean, and it did play out later on. Like, she did have a central role in the plot later on. But I felt like throughout the middle portion of the book, like, I feel like she was just forgotten about. Or if she wasn't forgotten about, she just kind of blended into because at the beginning, she's like, it's her and Dahl, and they're buddies, and they're figuring this out, and they're there together. But then all of a sudden, she just goes away. All right, now I'm back.
She also makes these clunky kind of the character makes these kind of clunky comments or jokes that are even in the book. People are like, "Wait, what did you just say?" Like at one
Yeah.
point, they go on that shore leave, and Doll's like, "Oh, I'll babysit this guy Kerensky, who you're so annoyed with, who you end up sleeping with later." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Thanks, I owe you a blowjob."
Yeah.
And I was reading that like, "What?" And then the character goes, "What?"
Yeah. I mean, it's off the wall, but really not necessary. But
That's how I felt about
it's
it.
just weird and unnecessary, I thought.
Yeah, that was going to be my original misogynist moment until she was like, well, I didn't actually mean it. That's just the thing we say in the, so it's almost, or a thing we say in the ground infantry or whatever. It's just a phrase. And so it was almost like he put it in there to intentionally critique it. And then like, I don't know what I think about this anymore.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I was confused by that. I like how to think about that character for these reasons.
But yeah, that goes back to kind of the language issue in the review that Stephen pointed out earlier, because it is written very simply. Like if you take out the cursing, this could be like a YA book, basically. But then there's just and I'm not offended by cursing, but I definitely noticed the disconnect of this very simply written book, and then just like throw in a bunch of cursing so we know this is an adult book.
Wait, are we referring to cursing or are we referring to filthy talk?
Yes.
So, boob talk? Any boob talk?
There were two in the book. There was one in the book, and then Andy Dahl, main character, says, "I'm good with my tongue," and he's pretty flirty. That doesn't count, though. Tongues are a little bit different from boobs, I think.
I think they're slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah, the only one I highlighted was Duvall talking about Kerensky saying, the reason he has his arm around my shoulder so he can grope my tit. Lieutenant or not, I'm about to kick his ass.
Yeah, I had the same exact one. And I was like, wait, this is the person she settles for and dates later on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and a lot of these things I didn't, like I was looking for things to talk about, but just the writing and the characters, it's all just so like anodyne. I felt hard. It was just very difficult to pick out anything specific.
Yeah, I feel like there were a couple times when they referred to like the female crew and it was like that, the eye candy kind of thing for shows and movies. Like, I mean, I don't think it was ever like an overtly said thing, but like the way they referred to the females was like oh, they're here to look good and all that stuff, which, again.
But then is he writing it that way because it's a bad science fiction show and he's pointing out how poorly the female characters are often written?
Probably so.
I don't know. Maybe.
I missed that if that's the case. So it didn't quite land for me, that critique.
Yep. All right. Penis parade.
Well, the blowjob comment, were there others? I guess there's a moment where Kerensky they're implying that he maybe is having sex with the actor who plays him because they have this incredible connection.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Well, it's not mentioned, but there's the part where they steal Kerensky's pants and he's running around pantsless in Los Angeles. So presumably there's some penis there.
That guy is like the most moronic, idiotic character in the book. And again, that's the one they make the female character is like dating.
Yeah, which also as a Chekhov stand-in, I didn't quite get because I feel like I don't know. Have not not watched enough, but I feel like Chekhov was not an intelligent guy.
Well, with the whole sleeping with the actor that plays you thing, I remember Will Wheaton is reading this to me, so I'm hearing Will Wheaton say this, but I heard it and I had to pause it. And I was like, did he just sleep with himself? Like, but they didn't address it yet, and I was like, did I just hear that correctly? Like, what's going on here? And then he comes out and says, and no, I did not sleep with the actor playing me.
The thing about the characters kind of blending together and being different, I always think of, I studied English in college. I had to write this essay about the Canterbury Tales. And I remember the prompt was about the Knight's Tale. And the prompt in my English class was like, are these characters different or are they somehow the same and what's going on? And I didn't read it that well and I closely. And spoiler alert, I got like a B- or even a C on the paper that I turned in, but I was made this, what I thought was convincing argument that they really are different and individual. And whoever reviewed my paper was like, no, you're wrong. They're the same. C. And I was thinking that when characters fail to be disambiguate, like differentiated in my
Yeah.
brain. I always think back to that, my failure to see that in the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah. Fantastical food. The only note I had about fantastical food was that they referred to where they ate on their ship as a food court, and I don't think when they were there they actually ever ate anything.
No, I didn't see any foods on the fantastical spectrum, but as far as just use of food, I thought it was a nice touch when Kerensky refused to eat contemporary Earth food. I guess he just didn't like the look of it or didn't trust it. Because there was another thing that a lot of the reviews pointed out is there's just so little world building and description of what the future is like that was like the one moment where you get the real contrast between the future world and our world.
That's a good point about the world, because I was trying to look for foods too, and they just talk vaguely about getting drinks. That one guy, Finn, who's like a drug dealer, he has a handful of like drugs that he references, the Xenopseudoagaricus, which is a fungus, but there's no effort put into like foods and fantastic foods or drinks.
Yeah. And I don't know if we should like credit that with, again, this is just a generic sci-fi show, and they're just eating like trays of food blocks or whatever. And so, is it parody or is it just lack of world building? I don't know.
But they do talk about coffee a lot, and mostly it's like references to fake getting coffee to run away. But at the same time, it's like they're talking about coffee every few pages, and I was like, wow, this guy thinks about coffee almost as much as I think about coffee. It's like I think about coffee every few pages of my life as well. There's a lot of coffee references in here.
Well, they had to have an excuse to get out of there, you know? So let's, go get coffee.
Did you notice the contemporary foods they mentioned? Like later on, it was Hester or Hansen. I think it was Hansen. He ate 3 carnitas burritos, and so like the actual the thing that's fantastic to these people is like this California food.
Yeah.
All right. How about soap stuff?
I didn't have any of that. I mean, we talked about the relationship stuff. I thought the animals were kind of funny, but that's completely unrelated.
I did find a quote from John Scalzi, and we've hit on this a bunch, but he says, it is in fact probably the least racially/sexually diverse book I've written because the characters were supposed to reflect a bad show. He said that in 2015.
Can't you just kind of say everything that's bad about the book is because it's about a bad show?
Yeah, that's a good way to deflect any criticism.
True.
I think soap stuff, the only thing I noted was, there are a lot of doubles and twins and that sort of thing in soap operas. So at the end, when they all meet their actor doubles and kind of have to switch places, and that's a little bit soapy.
Yeah.
I guess that hospital scene's pretty soapy, right? The guy, the producer, Paulson, I really had trouble buying that, the emotional, the pathos of that scene, and the son is back to life, and he's not your son, the son's in the hospital bed. It was like the book was so
soapy
light.
Now that you say it, that is pretty soapy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and he comes back to life, and everybody's happy.
All right, guys, big question: did we like the book?
I liked the first 3/4 of it. Did not like the ending, did not like the codas. The codas are kind of like insult to injury for me. It's like this, they're providing different lenses on this ending that I was not satisfied with. And again, I felt like I did a lot of work. I got some enjoyment out of it, but I did a lot of work suspending disbelief. And I was not that stoked on the codas and the different lens on what I had just read.
How about you, Kevin? I think we know where you stand, but go ahead and say it to be official.
No, I mean, so I agree with all the criticisms I read in the 2-star reviews on Goodreads. While I was reading it, I mostly enjoyed it. It's a good airplane. I read it on an airplane mostly. It's a good airplane book. It's fast and easy to read. It's entertaining. It's got some humor. So I would go on the side of I liked it. I don't regret reading it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anyone else as, you got to read this. And kind of the more I think about it, the more problems I have with it. But I still overall liked it. And from the reviews I've read, even a lot of other people who really like Scalzi don't like this book. So I don't know that it's representative of his writing overall, which is another reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to someone as a first Scalzi.
Yeah, it makes me want to read more of his stuff to have a comparison to make it to.
Yeah.
But as far as this one's concerned, I liked it. I liked it just for fun entertainment. It gets a little deep. It doesn't work it out exactly the way it probably should be worked out, but it has a little deep spots, but it's also just a fun book with stupid jokes and dumb, awkward people, So
Kevin,
I liked it.
Did you like the codas?
I can't decide. I liked, kind of like I said, I did not like the main plot just having something new introduced and ending. I liked some aspects of the codas, mostly the character-based ones, the one that was just a big long blog post. I didn't really care for as much. But yeah, I mean, I liked the two character-based ones just to kind of see the effect that everything that happened in the narrative, like what effect that had in the real world. And I don't know, the whole like the two characters that meet each other because of what happened in the narrative of the book and seem to be heavy, like burgeoning love story. Like, it's a little sappy, but I don't know. I thought that was a nice way to end it. So
I saw this review similar to what you said, Stephen. Maybe not similar to what you said, but in the same vein, where the reviewer wrote, "The three codas took this over the top. The element in this book that lifted it deep over the center fielder's head and into the bleachers."
Amy sent me so if you go into Google and just type in whatever, the first link is John Scalzi's blog.
Mhm.
But she sent me a blog post that he wrote. It's called A Note About the Format of Redshirts. And he addresses the three he addresses the three codas being there. And he said that those so they're really three short stories, but he wanted them to be in the book itself, but he couldn't figure a way to work them in to make all those connections within the story. So he put them on as three, codas at the end to kind of, I guess he's thinking to tie it all back together. But the on the blog post, it says the original, let me pull it up. Hold on. It says, Redshirts is not a novel, is what he says. Because it was apparently, Kevin, you mentioned it earlier, like it didn't have the word count, it didn't have the page numbers to be a novel. So he put the three codas on the end to up the page count. But he said they were originally supposed to be part of the story anyway. He just couldn't fit them in. So for what it's worth, that's what John Scalzi said.
Yeah,
That's funny because as I was
sense.
reading them, I was very much like, he put these in here because there's not enough words in this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, all things considered.
I think the problem I had with the codas, and I think that what you just read, Stephen, colors my opinion, turns it maybe from real sour to less sour, but I didn't care that much about the characters the codas were about. I cared more about the characters in the book preceding the codas, and by that point, I was like kind of done with it. I think, and done
You're
with
like, all right,
this quote unquote reality for the. I'm less interested in that and what happens with those people.
Yeah, because the silly story was fun, but then to get all serious at the end. I mean, I liked it because it kind of put a little humanity to it, but also like the story was just fun. But all right, so I would say we kind of like it, kind of not. All right, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Star Trek's cheating.
Can be Star Trek. Amy says it's Star Trek all the time.
I guess I would just go with Star Wars because of the jokes about shooting door panels. I like that joke about every time we get in a battle, the bridge goes up in a shower of sparks. Why does that happen? It's built so poorly. Like, I thought of Star Wars.
I think the Millennium Falcon kind of went up in sparks when it got hit with stuff, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, why did they build those ships so badly where you hit it in one place and there's a shower of sparks where everybody's driving the thing?
I mean, forget the fact that you're putting your life on the line being out in space. Let's put it in the worst built thing ever. But yeah, I go Star Wars.
I said Lord of the Rings because it is about a group of friends who have to band together and go on a journey to save their world. the whole thing with the narrative intruding is more magic than science, and they have to go through a black hole event horizon, which is kind of like a ring.
Wow, you are good at this. Can I change my answer to be Kevin's answer too? Just vote. I want to vote for Kevin's answer.
I'll vote for it too.
All
Although
right.
I like this. It also felt kind of like cheating to say that it was Star Wars, but I didn't want to say Star Trek because that's the obvious thing. But cheating on the
It's
Star
like,
Trek folks with Star Wars felt wrong.
Kevin, you put so much deep thought into that, and I was just like, oh, they shoot door panels.
Well, I have practice hearing all the arguments, so
I buy it. I'm a believer of your argument.
all right.
Me too. So I think we just have one more thing to do. Is there anything we forgot, Kevin?
I don't think so.
So coming up next, first of all, I'll say this because it's on a show doc. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. My sister's on it. So please listen and rate and subscribe and share it with your friends because it's a wonderful show made by wonderful human beings. And those wonderful human beings will be back next time to talk about Forever Peace by Joan Hadelman? Well, Joe wrote Forever Peace. It was the 1998 Hugo Award winner. So I guess that's it for the Hugo Bros.
Eric, where can people find you and your podcast?
It's called Picture Me Coding, www.picturemecoding.com. And it's a lot of computer science and software engineering stuff. So if that's not your cup of tea, but you want to hear Amy, she does appear on an episode where she helps us look at how software programming, artificial intelligence is represented in popular culture. And that was a ton of fun. And I really want her to come back and do that more with us in the future.
All right. Well, good to see you guys. Great book chat. And maybe they'll have us back. Who knows?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Maybe.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Bye.
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 Hugo girl. Hugo girl. Hugo girl. A hilarious podcast.
Just whatever's coming up next time, which I actually don't know what it is. Maybe I can add it in post.
I have that, actually.